How you doing?
How are you?
Good. Doing okay?
I am doing okay. Yeah, it's never a dull moment, right?
Yeah, especially now. So,
Especially now.
okay, so I got a lot of questions, and obviously mostly about the new stay-at-home order. Okay,
Yes.
so that means you can't go out after 8 p.m. Unless you're an essential worker, but you can pick up something curbside at a non-essential store. Anyways, I guess what does the stay-at-home order mean?
Well, we are still trying to puzzle our way through it ourselves, to be
Okay.
quite frank. And these are provincial orders. We are asking our provincial friends to help us understand these, and so to get the most direct answer for the public, I suggest you call your MPP.
Okay.
There is actually, our local MP does have a frequently asked questions that has already been posted. There is a link to it from my social feeds. We are feeding them just probably as many questions as the residents are. And we are looking at that FAQ to get answers ourselves. So we are still, our staff are still reading through the regulations. We're still trying to understand what it means for city services. So as soon as we have some clarity around that, we will certainly post that at burlington.ca. For personal situations, so I've been flooded, as I'm sure you have and others, with queries about, here's my personal situation, can I still do X, Y, or Z? We are not in a position to answer that because we don't know, we're still trying to sort out the regulations. So please call the local member of provincial parliament. Please also call Halton Health 311. So our regional public health unit will be able to also advise from a health perspective what the regulations might mean for you. So that's the best advice you're going to get. That's the fastest advice you're going to get. That's what I'm going to be doing when I get those
Okay.
questions myself. So we're still trying to figure it out, and it's all just landed on all of us. So.
Should I assume that there is going to be a grace period then in regards to these rules because obviously there's so much confusion?
So you're asking about enforcement. So
Yeah,
our principle of enforcement at the city has always been educate before legislate, before ticketing. So so clearly that's our bylaw enforcement. Now police will have to answer that question, but our bylaw enforcement officers have always taken a soft approach and education first, and ticket if necessary. And so I expect they will continue to do so. Now, if it's a regulation that's been around forever, don't expect to get a free pass on that one. But we're all figuring it out, and that would be a great question to ask the Halton Regional Police Service how they're going to interpret this.
Um, I guess, do I sense a little bit of frustration as far as this regulation goes, or is this just kind of like,
You know what? I think we're all tired. We're all
yeah,
frustrated. I know our community is. We are trying to make sense of what it means and what it doesn't mean. My first thoughts when I glanced at the announcement was that not a lot has changed,
yeah, true.
but there's a lot stronger language. There's a
Yeah,
lot stronger language. So we have yet to see, is the order an order that is enforceable by law? If it's not backed up by law, then it's an exhortation, it's a guideline. We need to understand that, and I haven't seen the regulations yet. Our legal staff will obviously go over that and advise which of these have the status of law that are ticketable offenses, and which are strong exhortations to do the following. So certainly I would encourage people to voluntarily follow the advice to limit your outings, absolutely limit your contact to members of your own household. That's always been there. But I understand, people are frustrated, and when so much is still allowed to be open, when, shave an hour off LCBO, that, people understandably are asking, what's the health evidence and how is this going to solve the pandemic? And I think all of us were looking and wanting tougher restrictions, but meaningful ones. And ones that were easy to understand, that we could all follow, because I know Burlington residents want to follow the rules. They have done a great job. That's why our numbers are still in Halton lower than elsewhere. So we want to do our part, but we need to understand it to know what that is. And so I can tell you there's a lot of frustration out there, and I feel that too. I get it. We need to pull together now at a time when we're at the worst of the pandemic. And the best thing you can do, stay home as much as possible, but people can leave to go to work. You can go outside your house to exercise, but stay away from people that aren't in your household. Don't gather in large groups. You know, these are the messages that have been around for a very long time.
Within the GTHA, the numbers in Halton are actually doing better than most of the other regions. Do you see Halton and Burlington getting out of lockdown kind of February 11th?
Nobody's coming out of lockdown unless those numbers are way down.
Okay.
Are way down, because we now know, after our last experience with Halton being surrounded by areas that were in lockdown, and that made sense at the time because our approach was make decisions based on health evidence, science, indicators at the public health unit level. We now know we can't do that. We have to make decisions, look at health indicators across a much larger region, across multiple health units. And because Burlington is now taking patients from Hamilton and other areas that need our help, that are on fire all around us, the new indicator is what's happening across the entire public health unit, several public health units. So yeah. when that changed, of course, my view about the lockdown changed. It was backed up by solid health recommendations from health professionals that what we were doing before and limiting our scope of advice to a single public health unit wasn't sufficient. That was the right call, and that's where we are now. So regardless of the fact that Halton's numbers are down, we now know that we are affected, and our public health capacity is affected by what's happening around us, and so this now needs to be looked at a much broader level. So really, that's Southern Ontario. You know, however you define that. How far up does Southern Ontario go? At least as far as Barrie and beyond, right? So
yeah, true.
So you know, so we are all affected. We're a single public health unit now. So the indicators, even though there's hot spots in different areas, the indicators, if they're bad anywhere in this larger region, it will impact all of us. And so until Peel, Toronto, York, Hamilton, until those numbers go down, none of us are getting out of this, because we'll just have the same roller coaster we did before.
True. Is Burlington ready for the vaccine rollout when the time comes and all the vaccines come into the country?
We are absolutely getting ready. We're probably not going to be needed until the fall, but we start our planning ahead to be ready. So we have launched in the city of Burlington a COVID vaccination task force of staff, and they liaise with the region and other partners. Our role, just to be clear, is to provide a space for vaccinations for the public to take place. That's our role. So facilities and staffing, if there need to be marshals or that sort of thing. But the folks who determine how many vaccines we get, who gets them first, where they go, those decisions are not made by the city. Those are made by federal, provincial, and regional officials. And we're just here, once we get vaccines, we're the ones that decide what facilities we can accommodate them in. So we're looking at, we're looking at our options right now so that we're ready. As soon as, we're ready to open a facility as soon as the region calls on us.
Okay. My 100-year-old Lola in a home got her first shot. So.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Lola.
She said it was just a poke. That's all she said. So.
Well, you're talking to someone who hates any needle of any size, but I will get one when it's my turn. So.
Yes, same here. Okay, so the other thing, you're very vocal in regards to the disappointment of the Halton Police Chief going to Florida for property matters. Do you think the police chief should resign?
So what happens to the police chief is a decision for the Halton Regional Police Board to make. The chief has expressed an apology. That's a start. You may be aware that that trip was authorized by the chair of the board of the police, but not the full board. And that's really important, that we're getting emails saying the whole board should step down for authorizing this. The rest of the board had no knowledge of this. Yeah. The chair of the board made that decision. The chair of the board now has apologized and stepped off of the board. And folks may not know this either, but regional council, of which I'm a member, we appoint members to the Halton Regional Police Services Board. So the chair was one of our appointees. There are 3 provincial appointees that we don't choose, but everybody else, there's elected officials as well as citizen. Halton Regional Council appoints. So we are meeting as Regional Council. Our next regular meeting is on the 20th of January, next Wednesday. So now that there's a vacancy on the board, we will need to fill that. So we will have a vote about who is going to replace the chair on that board. The police board is meeting on Friday. Special meeting has been called. That's public information. The meeting's not public, but the fact that there is a meeting is happening on Friday, and they've got some tough conversations and decisions to make. Clearly, there needs to be consequences, and there needs to be a message sent that this is not acceptable behavior, and some consequence for that. So, and the reason for that is this has eroded public trust. This is bigger than travel by one individual. This is about, do the elected officials, do the health officials, do community leaders hold themselves to the same standard as others? And we have to, especially now in the worst of the pandemic. And so, when it first happened, I, of course, said, just so you know, because I was getting questions, it paints us all with the same brush, right? Yeah. Well, what did you do over the holidays? Well, I mostly sat right where I am here.
You have proof. You have proof.
Yeah, well, but we've seen even that get shattered. So as soon as the photos that purported to show Cabinet Minister Rob Phillips at home in Ajax when he was really somewhere else, people don't trust social media anymore. So there's been a serious blow to public trust because of, and it's not just one person, it's multiple. It's several health officials, many elected officials, and a community leader at the police. So it's just this long line of people that are making really poor judgment calls, having to apologize for it later. So at least they've recognized, we're not debating whether it was the right thing to do. That would be, if we were still debating that, that would be in and of itself a problem. But he has apologized. Many others have apologized. But there are consequences that arise as a result of that. And there's a need to restore public trust. So we need to make those steps. So my first step was to let folks know I haven't traveled. Yeah. I do believe we have to follow the same regulations. My second step was to make sure that none of my council or senior staff had traveled. The good news is that none of city council or senior staff traveled. The other step that I took was in all of my public meetings now, I will let folks know what city I'm calling in from. Okay. So I'm in Burlington right now, and so that's important for folks to know, especially in our virtual world where we have seen how easy it is to make people think that you are somewhere that you're not. Yeah. Public trust is all we have in a pandemic, for starters, right? We have legislation, but that's not going to get us through a pandemic if people don't trust us and follow it. So this is a very serious matter, and I know everyone is taking it seriously, and I expect we'll hear more in coming days and weeks about what the board is going to do.
This was big news. It was all over, the TVs, internet, and I know Oakville, the Oakville Mayor Burton was the head of the police services board that allowed him to go. I know he's resigned, but do you think that's enough?
He's apologized and he's stepped off the board.
Yeah. Do you think
So
that's enough?
he's no, yes. So what
Yeah.
else? Yes.
Yes. Okay.
That was inappropriate. I know there are folks calling for him to step down as mayor. You know what? His constituents elected him to do a job for 4 years, so he's got to honor that commitment to do it for 4 years.
Okay.
If they are still wanting to replace him as their mayor, they can do that at the ballot box. But it was clear that to restore the trust in the board, and to ensure that this investigation, which included him, he couldn't lead that as the chair, that others needed to step in and show leadership. So I think the right decision was made to apologize and to step off the board, and we will send somebody else. And that kind of clears the air, it clears the situation, because the other board members had no knowledge of this.
Okay.
So there's no penalty required for them.
Okay. The first COVID-19 hospital at Joe Brant, it opened last week or the week before. Is it busy?
I will get the update in half an hour.
Have you heard
it? My most recent information is that there are patients, but it's nowhere near capacity. Yeah.
Okay. Halton will not be among the regions extending the duration of the remote learning. What do you think of that?
Well, as I said this morning, I am not privy to that logic.
Okay.
Should we or shouldn't we? I don't know the criteria on which they were making that decision, and so I can't really comment on the logic of it. I know that there are parents who are keeping their kids in remote learning for their own safety and have made that decision already. I know there are parents struggling to cope with kids at home and doing their own full-time job and having to be, essentially a classroom assistant for their kids. This is really, really tough times. This is really tough times for families with school-age kids. And then you have the internet going down. So
yeah.
It's a challenge. So I know in the community there will be folks who are, relieved that at least for now, it doesn't affect Halton.
Okay. A non-COVID question. Last week you mentioned the city staff were investigating 45 appeals to the Burlington's new official plan. Is there any updates to that?
48, actually.
48.
I looked at the final tally. So I actually went to the LPAT to see if I could find them, because eventually they have to be all posted there. Okay. But they get filed at the regional clerk's counter, and then they consolidate them. So we're still waiting for sort of a report back on the nature of them. And usually what we find out is, this many deal with this section of the OP. This many are property specific. They don't like how it affects their personal property. Those are usually the two broad categories, because you can't appeal the whole thing.
Yeah.
And the other thing we want to understand from staff once they do that review is what sections of our new OP have not been appealed, because those are in effect already now, right? So two things: the 48 appeals can't just blanket appeal the whole OP. Therefore, any parts that nobody appealed, done and dusted.
Okay.
But I don't have that for you yet.
Okay, all right.
Stay tuned. Still to come. I expect it will be both. There will be sections, so clauses that are being appealed, and individual matters that relate to impact on individual properties and developments. That's usually what it is.
I'm going to get to Instagram viewer questions, the ones that I got throughout the day. Let's see here. Some of these you've already answered. So, how many cannabis storefronts are planned for 2021 in the city?
So I have no idea.
Okay, all right.
But here's the reason why: is we don't know that anybody's planning a store until we get the notice from the Alcohol and Gaming Commission of Ontario saying an application has come in, and do we have anything to say about it? So those go through the AGCO. So until somebody files, we don't know. Once somebody files, the public can comment and city can comment, which we have done for every single application that's come in. So we've had 17 applications so far. If memory serves, roughly 10 have been approved and are open, and some are under review still or have gotten approval but haven't opened. So when an application comes in, you have the opportunity to either express your support or not. Okay. And in all but 2 of the applications, they met our own city guidelines. So we can't enforce them, but we did, as a council, come up with a set of guidelines for, over and above what the province said, that we think stores should not be here or should be over here, shouldn't be clustered. So we had a whole series of guidelines. So we evaluate all of those in light of those guidelines. And then that forms the basis of our comments to the AGCO. So we say, well, we've reviewed this application and it either does or it doesn't meet our guidelines, and we either accept it or oppose it on that basis. So we've opposed several because they didn't, but most of them did. So that's good news. These are legal businesses. If they meet our guidelines, they provide jobs, and they clearly provide a product or the service that the community is looking for. And we've had 0 complaints, 0.
Wow.
From
Okay.
any store. Haven't broken the law, haven't had any community concerns. So I think some of the concerns people may have had about, too many stores, possibly, or any stores at all, we have had in the last, since they've been open, no complaints at all.
You should mention this to Mayor Crombie.
Well, I think the reason we're getting so many initially is that you can't set up shop in Mississauga
Exactly.
or Oakville. I think Milton might have recently changed, but it's one of those situations again that we were the first stop outside of TO if you wanted to come and get something rather than do it through the mail. And so I think that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. But that'll level itself out in time. There's a limited supply of people who will buy this at some point.
Another question we have, maybe you might know this, you might not. Will dog parks stay open?
So parks are not closed.
Okay, so, okay.
Any parks are not closed. And in fact, they never have been throughout. I think dog parks were because of the potential for gathering, I suppose. You're in a more confined area. It's a good question, but as of now, I have not heard that we have to close them. I don't believe we do that. That is a city service. We do run the leash-free parks that are in Burlington. So stay tuned on that. But my understanding at this point is that they are open. All of our parks are open for people to walk through. So I think it's really important to convey that the stay-at-home order allows people to leave their house for exercise. Walk your dog, walk the neighborhood, go to a dog park, because most of us don't have one within walking distance. That is still allowed, but do that only with members of your own household, and don't interact with people.
Did I lose you? I think I lost you there for a second.
I lost you, or you lost me. I don't know. Probably bandwidth issue.
It's probably me. Sorry.
I don't know what you heard or missed there, but I just wanted to reiterate that stay-at-home order doesn't mean you have to stay inside your house. You're not under solitary confinement. You can leave for exercise. You can obviously leave to go to work. You can, you can go out to do your essential shopping, although most options now are available online, but you can go outside your house. And I do encourage people to do that. Get some exercise, get some fresh air, walk your dog, stay in your neighborhood, and stay within your own household.
Just one more question I see here. If you live alone, what are the rules now? Would you know that?
It's not changed, so people
No.
who live alone can adopt another household social bubble to interact with.
Okay, perfect. And here's the part where I ask if is there anything else you'd like to talk about?
Well, we're working on our city budget.
Anything,
So
any good
we,
line items?
there's lots of great stuff. You know, the business of the city continues, and we have to continue to provide city services and community services. We're going to do that. So we talked about our capital budget a day or two ago. You know, skating rinks and splash pads and things like that we're going to prepare for. Even if we can't use them right now, we're planning for the post-COVID future, and we're going to continue to work away on making sure that our community is ready for people when we're out of this pandemic. So we have our operating budget coming up. The initial city portion of the tax increase is at about 5%, which when you blend it with region and education nets out to an overall 2.8% tax increase. Not bad, but we want to get it down. So I'll be asking staff to do what we can to get our city portion under 4%, which would translate to a 2.5% increase, roughly. A little less than that at once all is said and done, and that would be that's what the true impact on the city. You know, you as a taxpayer, all you residents out there, that's what you'd end up paying. So those deliberations are still to come in February. We'll be spending quite some time talking about, you know, what stays or goes, or how we shave off a little bit more while still delivering great customer service and great customer services. Those don't stop in the pandemic.
Good. And it just, I've always wanted to ask you, has this been kind of the toughest political year you've ever had to face in all your years of being a councillor and now mayor?
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right, okay. It's like, but it's grown you, right? Like for
Oh, there's always huge silver linings. Yes, okay. I certainly have grown closer to people at the staff, my colleagues. You know, I've learned a lot personally, but our community has shown how resilient we are, how compassionate we are. I am so proud of our community for the fact that we are still very good on our infection rates. They're lower than all the places around us, and you know, nothing to get cavalier about, but that is because our Burlington citizens agree that they need to look out for each other, not just themselves, and think of others when they, you know, in all of their behavior. So they voluntarily followed the measures, and that is reflected in our infection rates. So I'm very proud of the community, but this is a roller coaster for everybody. Yeah. Every day you don't know what it's going to be, right? And that's, to go back to our original conversation, it's hard, it's frustrating, you think you understand it, and then it all gets upended and changes. You know, we don't know what the numbers are going to be any given day. Things can change within a matter of hours. You have to be willing to say, well, when I didn't support a lockdown, it was based on what I knew at the time, and now that I know new stuff, I'm going to change my view and move forward and be willing to change and pivot, and that's not easy, and you get flack either way, and sometimes that's not easy, but it goes with the territory. And so you learn to be really fast and just keep moving forward with people. And but it's unsettling for everyone, because you don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what's coming at you next. We have different names of the week to actually describe. We have different names of the week to describe what it's like being in a pandemic. Okay. So Fridays are always Pandemic Friday. There's always something that blows up on a Friday or some new announcement, and then we're in turmoil all weekend. Manic Mondays, I think this Monday was true to form on that. Tumultuous Tuesdays, and so forth. So we have, you know, that's what it means to be in public service during a pandemic. That every day is a roller coaster. Every day is like wild weather. and you just got to ride it and keep your sense of humor and get a breather from it from time to time. And, you know, hug the people that you can, which is your immediate family, or if you, you know, if you're single and you adopt a family, hug them.
I always envision every time I finish an interview, all politicians go to beside and then start punching the punching bag. But anyways, that's what I always envision.
I never punch anything after I talk to you.
Well, I'm just saying. It's like, I just figure it's like, you know, there's a punching bag there because, anyways, I can't imagine what you've gone through over the last year, as well as all the politicians. But anyways, you're doing a great job. So
thank you.
So,
it's tough for everybody. Yeah. We're all, you know, I've said this before, we're all in the same storm. We're not all in the same boat. And I'm fortunate. I know there's a lot of people that are struggling and suffering a whole lot worse than me. But it's hard on all of us. Yeah.
And there we go. We're 32 minutes into it, 2 minutes over. I apologize.
No worries. Thanks,
okay.
God.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.